Alright, so a lot of people always get in an argument over how to tell if your head gasket is blown. And they'll argue, well, you'll have coolant in your oil. And the others will go, no, you'll have oil in the coolant. Or others will argue, well, if it's not blowing coolant out the exhaust, then you don't have a blown head gasket. Well, it just depends on where you blow the head gasket, where the leak actually occurs. Because it could be anywhere on the head gasket. And you'll have, if you look at the Subaru block, for example, these right here are oil ports. Alright? Now, oh yeah, y'all want a puppy? Now, all around the cylinders, you've got coolant passages, right? So, you could have a compression leak somewhere, and be pushing combustion gases into your cooling system, anywhere in here, and it bubbling, cooling up, out, making it, overheat, or just run out of coolant, blasting it out of your overflow tank, or your head gaskets, like a lot of the mid-year Subarus, the late 90s, 2000, up to about 05, they'd leak around here, and then drip oil in the driveway, but be perfectly fine the way they run, and cool. So it just depends on where your head gasket is actually blown at to determine what kind of issues you have. Now, near about all your Subarus, 99 to 05, they're going to eventually start dripping oil around here, where the microfiber coating on the head gaskets, factory gaskets, would start to leak a little bit. Not a big problem. It only does it when it's running and then you park it and it leaves a little quarter-sized spot of oil, or you'll smell it on the headers. But as far as it running, it's perfectly fine. You throw some FELPRO multi-layer steel or other brand multi-layer steel head gaskets on there, never have a problem again. Now, back to actual blown head gaskets though. There's another trick also to tell if it's a head gasket problem. And remember where I said that your head gasket could actually blow around the cylinder and be pushing gases into the cooling system? Well, that means that the gases are getting trapped into the cooling system, and sometimes they'll create an air pocket to where the thermostat holds the bubble, and then it'll overheat because the thermostat's not getting hot coolant to make it pop open, even though the engine's getting too hot. Or you'll have air that goes all the way around to the top of the radiator, and the bubbles will push up into the overflow tank, and you can see them. Y'all want to see me kick a bulldog? Leave them alone. They weigh like 8 pounds. Jesus. Alright. Check this out. Pushing the bubbles up, top of the radiator. Now I've done filled this radiator and aired it out and everything. Filled the tank. That way I can show you. Every once you see the bubbles popping up. Right over here. Coming up out of the tube here. Down the bottom and then bubbling back up. That's combustion gas. Now watch this. There's air also trapped in the top of the radiator. It's just not pushing a lot into the overflow because it's not building up pressure a whole lot. Well, watch this. Remember, I got all the air out of here, okay? Well, watch me squeeze this thing. See? Pushing the bubbles out, and it's sucking good coolant back into the radiator. And every time I squeeze it, it's getting bubbles. Combustion gas bubbles. Alright? So if I let it sit here and run, it's going to keep doing it. It will not run hot, because it's getting the bubbles out. The coolant's staying in there. But eventually, it'll push so much, it'll eventually just overflow out of there. But another trick, you can do this and gas on it to put it under a load, and the increased combustion pressure will push more bubbles past the head gasket into the overflow tank. So check this out. So, there's a little trick for you guys to remember when checking this stuff out. What happened to me was my radiator hose pressured up because my cap wasn't venting, and blew my hose off, and I didn't realize it for about 10-15 seconds, and she hit like 310 degrees according to my scan tool that I had with me on the highway. So, right now it's driving. The coolant's staying in there. I'm able to drive it to work, but I've gathered up all my goodies to get my head gaskets done finally. And these were the factory gaskets anyway, so oh well, they needed to be done. It's already starting to leak a little bit of oil. It's got 150,000 miles, so it's getting by that time they're starting to leak oil. But these FELPROs that I'm throwing in are good. They're the same type that they use in the turbos, and I would recommend it for anything Comatics. If you got the money to dump in it, I don't see why you go get a outrageously priced set of gaskets for a non-turbo, just a stock block. But do what you want to do. Just make sure they're MLS. Don't get the eBay junk. The graphite stuff, they won't hold up for a week. Don't get anything that even looks remotely like factory gaskets. They won't hold up 100,000 miles or less. And the kind of money, you got to pull the motor to do them. So I wouldn't piss Ant. The FELPRO gaskets are only about $45-50 a piece. So why would you even do that? You can get an eBay gasket set and use the bolts and use the valve cover gaskets and stuff like that. But the head gaskets, you can't go cheap on that. But anyways, look at here. Crazy thing. Anyways, yeah. So now another little trick. I know you guys probably run into this problem, or are kind of trying to diagnose it, running hot ever so often. Can't figure out why. By the way, if you're having bubbles but it runs fine, there's no coolant in the oil, no coolant coming out the exhaust like mine, there's a trick. Don't ever do this unless you do what I've already done. But there is a trick that you can actually nick the bottom gasket here to where it constantly bleeds pressure into there and gets bubbles out, so the coolant will stay in there. Because pure water alone, boiling temps is like 230. Coolant mix is 260. Yeah, 265. Can't even see it. Yeah, 265. This coolant's never even going to reach boiling temperature as long as there's coolant in there and it's circulating through the radiator and the fan. So with it open venting, it's perfectly fine. It's just like an old school, and it'll let your bubbles vent out. And then every once in a while, I drive it to work 30-40 miles a day and then back. So every once in a while, I'll give it a good squeeze to get the air on out, and it'll suck the coolant on back in so that my radiator stays full. And every once in a while I'll check out my overflow. and I put some more 50/50 in it. Don't run straight water in it. I mean, the winter aside, your water pumps use coolant. You know, it's slimy. It's a lubricant for your water pump seals. So you don't want to run straight water in it, except in an emergency, and then throw some coolant in it, because you'll trash the water pump. But this is any car. A lot of people don't think about stuff like that, but yes, it will. Or the shaft itself will rust from sitting with water in it, and then when you crank it up, the rust will just tear up the seals, just gut them. But anyway, little trick, neat little trick. That this is an old crappy radiator, and I didn't nick this gasket because it's nicked right here anyways. It vents. That's why I'm able to just squeeze it and back and forth. So that's a little trick to save your butt in a bind if you have a problem. See, it's letting me vent it right out. And I got a new radiator for it that I'm going to throw in when I do my heads. And everything will be good to go. So anyway, what you think, dude? Huh? Yeah, I know.